we're so happy you're here, and we also have a really amazing panelist who I personally feel very privileged to have the opportunity to talk to just now. And before we start, I just want to elaborate a little bit on the Digital Accelerator because we do have an amazing program here at PwC as well. So we call it Digital Accelerators because around last year we have a digital upskilling journey where we come in as lawyers, accountants, or actuarial students, but we were given the opportunity to learn these new softwares such as Tableau, Alteryx through online resources, even as far as Python are these coding programs, and we're trying to incorporate that into client engagements. And accompanying these programs also have some fun activities such as digital assistants, where we can act as a personal assistant to our partners but help them to learn these new tools and softwares very intimately, or we can also have something called digital cafes where we just sit there and people come to us with all these questions of how to use these new tools and where can we get resources on this new information. So that's something I've been doing in the past year, and I personally learned a lot because I didn't come in with any technological background, and also helped to incorporate new knowledge into some of our client engagements, and the client enjoyed it as well. So that's something we're doing here at PwC. I'm not sure if you're an employee or employer or would like to know more about these digital upskilling programs, but feel free to reach out to me after the panel. Okay, enough about me. Too much about me, actually. So now we have this amazing panel, and we know they've done amazing experiences and help a lot of people throughout the world, actually. So I think it's actually a great time to have them maybe highlight a few of their life stories to share with the group about their digital journey. So Bernadette, take away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me as part of the panel. My name is Bernadette Sheridan. I'm the Senior Director of Product Design at Fairygodboss. Fairygodboss, in case you don't know, is the largest career site for women. It's actually a platform where we have career connections, jobs, and advice from career-minded women where you can talk to each other as yourself or even anonymously and ask the questions that we're all facing as we go through our careers. One of the best things about me working at this company is that the mission of Fairygodboss is to basically advance women in the workforce, and if that means giving them access to really hard to find intelligence on what companies value and which companies are looking to hire women, which companies are looking to diversify, those are the companies that we partner with, and those are the jobs that you'll find on Fairygodboss site. So I was really lucky to get into digital, probably not until I was around 40 years old. I worked in old media. I was at the Daily News for more than 10 years doing print design, and it became very clear that this was going to end. So I did something that was actually something that was suggested by people earlier today. I took an enormous pay cut, and I went to AOL and I took on photo editing. And I did that for a year really under a contract position. But what that enabled me to do was learn a lot of stuff about photo rights management, new media, and all the tools that for the past 10 years, those are the skills that I learned to launchpad me 10 years later to being able to be a product designer in a startup space. So.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, so my name is Francesco Rulli. I was born in Florence, Italy, and grew up in a family focused on fashion, like most Italians, you know. And one day, an ambassador from the United Nations wanted to rent one of my real estate properties in New York City, and I told him, I'm sorry, I can't because you are a diplomat. He was very surprised, and I said, you might not pay rent, and I can't persecute you. So he made a point to introduce me to two famous people to prove the point that he was a good guy. One was Bono from U2, who wanted to launch the line Red, and one was John Malkovich, the actor. And Bono had very big ideas, and they were way beyond my capability of execution. So with John, instead, we had a very good feeling. He's actually he's a life companion. He's from Italy, and we decided to start the clothing line together. 4 years later, in 2004, over a breakfast, he was really upset with someone. I say, "Why are you so upset?" And this guy said to me, "There is this distributor who wants to basically take advantage of me, and I'm very upset about this because I keep producing movies and we get strangled by distributors. So that inspired me in 2005 to launch a company called Filmonics, an online film distribution platform that allowed us to distribute independent movies from any country online, the equivalent of YouTube. We launched 2 months after YouTube. It was a very, very successful company, and in 2011, Malala was shot in the face. And if you look at my ears, I have cauliflower ears. I do judo, and that is a version of wrestling. It's like wrestling with a pajama on. And I thought, you can't blame the Taliban, because that's what they do. They are the bad guys. What you have to blame is the system, because Malala is publishing her blogs on BBC, and BBC is getting $25, $75, $50 CPM, and is now sharing the revenues with the Malalas of the world. There is only one Malala, and her name and her location is open. So I say, what if I actually educate girls to become financially independent with the digital, utilizing digital tools? At the same time, NATO came to me and offered me to distribute some of their content. There were videos they shot in Libya, Afghanistan, and Kosovo. And I saw a video of a woman building a school in Kabul. So I say to myself, well, if she can build a classroom in Kabul, why I can't build a classroom in Kabul, right? That's easy. So I reached out to her. Her name is Raya Mahfouz. And I funded building 13 classrooms in high schools in the west of Afghanistan and 2 IT centers in Kabul. And with that, more or less, we impact the life of over 50,000 young women, and I think boys too, because I doubt that those classrooms were only used by girls. One day, the classrooms were taken away from us. This is 2014. After all those efforts, a lot of mental and financial energy put into this. So coincidentally, IBM had just bought SoftLayer, and I was hosting everything on SoftLayer. So my CTO calls me up from Italy. His name is Francesco, like me. I say, hey, Francesco, we got good news. I say, what? We got Watson for free. So what if we build some chats to educate those girls remotely? So in 2015, we built, late 2014, we built some chatbots to educate girls in Farsi about digital and financial literacy. And we got the curriculum from a company here called Burger in Burma. I've never been in Afghanistan. And all this thing I'm talking to you about, I have been doing it with technology. I'm not a technologist. And what it is like when you have a positive attitude about technology, you can really change the world. Okay? So now we are using those guys' technology a lot, and he'll tell you more about IBM.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Tom Wenzlau. I lead the New Collar initiatives for IBM. It was a very good description of what New Collar is. Essentially, we looked at what the needs are of the IT industry as basic technology is changing, and saw that all of these old models of what we look for in terms of signals of potential success for people were a bit outdated. So we started trying to shift what we do when we're thinking about who we want to hire towards skills rather than just degrees. And there were a large segment of jobs that we had that didn't require a 4-year degree, but just required some sort of post-secondary education. So how could we improve opportunities for people who had skills but didn't have access to jobs? So that's when Ginny launched these New Collar initiatives. At IBM, this has manifested itself in 3 programs. We have an apprenticeship program that we've launched, apprenticeable roles in the IT industry, so things like software engineering. That's a role that, for instance, the Department of Labor had never considered an apprenticeable role. It wasn't registered with the DOL, so we had to go to the DOL, build a competency model, explain what an industry standard software engineer can be, and that these roles are perfectly apprenticeable, right? So creating new pathways to software engineering jobs that didn't exist in the past. Second, we started with the Society for Women Engineers, what we call our Tech Reentry Program. So launching returnships for people who have left the workforce, been out of the workforce for a period of time, but now are expressing an interest to return. How can we better enable them to return? Because if we look at past views of talent acquisition, if there was a gap in someone's resume, it was traditionally a red flag. If you had 2 candidates, you'd go with the other candidate. So how do we shift that mindset? We know that the skills gap that we have today, we need everybody who wants to participate in the workforce to have that opportunity to do so. So returnships as a better opportunity to allow them to return to work. And then the last large-scale program that we really launched in the New Collar Initiatives was what we call P-Tech, which is a transformation of the 9 through 12, essentially high school education. We are now calling it 9 through 14 education, integrating community colleges into public high schools with aligned digital or technical degrees that are in demand in the local market for free. So essentially students going to their normal public school are able to graduate sometimes in 4 years with an associate's degree in an in-demand technical field. We launched those schools for the first time 4 years ago in Brooklyn, not too far from where I live. We now have 200 schools globally operating under the P-Tech model to try to better improve career opportunities for people in going to normal public schools around the world. So those are the things that we've done to try to reorient the labor market towards skills. And we have to do a lot of work also with companies to reorient their internal talent models towards skills and get out of these old mindsets of if you don't have a college degree, you can't get a job here. If you have a gap in your resume, you can't get a job here. It's still a long journey, but we're working to make those shifts across many organizations.
Thank you so much for all of your introductions. That's really inspiring. And I think the first question I have, I would like to direct to Bernadette. So I personally look at the Fairygodboss website. It's amazing. If you haven't checked it out, please, it's Fairygodboss. And when I look at it, I just immediately register because there's a lot of really good information and advice in terms of job, employer rating, how they're treating women, and also if you're an employer, there are also some really good collaborative opportunities. So I guess my question is really two-parted. The first one is the design of the website is really important, and I know, Bernadette, you also entered design halfway through your career. So maybe you can share with us the importance of design in terms of a technological product. And my second part of the question is, by running this website, maybe over the years, you have definitely obtained tons of good information and advice. So in terms of the content, would you like to share some with our audience?
Great, yeah, thank you so much. That's a really nice question to be asked. You know, asking a designer to talk about design, you're like, okay. For me, I have the opportunity, and I'm so grateful for it, that I get to design for a website that has a user base that spans 18-year-olds all the way up to 80-year-olds. We have a very, very diverse user base. The women that are on our site are all career-minded women, and it doesn't matter how far along they are in their world, they really are looking for access to information, and we are a site that's providing that. So my job in terms of being the designer, and I'm very lucky to have a colleague that I hired as a designer, and she's 25 and I'm 48, so I hired the perfect foil. She knows things that I don't know, and I know things that she doesn't know, so we're both learning from each other, but that's an aside. What we are both so proud of with the design of the website is because we have so many different people, digital natives and digital immigrants, as this is about, everybody needs to use the website the way they know how to use the website. So my job, utmost, is to design for familiarity and make sure that the user experience is something intuitive. So, and that's, if you think about it, over the last 10 years, that's new. Like, when people started designing websites, they were doing it for functionality, and then they started to get all fancy, and then they started to put controls on things that you had to hover over to see the button to do this. And it's a product life cycle, and what that means is you'll start with a really simple product, you'll start with a really simple website that everyone knows how to use, and then you'll add bells and whistles until you get scared away from that site. So part of my job as a user experience designer is making sure that when you're on this site, things are clear, you know where you can go, you know how to access the information, and it really brings it back to, like, design in itself is really just about modernization. Every single one of us is a designer in how we dress, in how we design our house, anything that you do where you're making an aesthetic choice for things to look the way you want them to look, that's design. I just get to do it for a website. But you all can do it with your careers just by modernizing your resume, for example. Design as something that's modern immediately adds, especially in the last 20, 25 years, when something looks more modern, it has intrinsic value. It just feels more valuable, and it's free. It's just about choosing a better font or a cleaner look and feel. So I'm so glad to hear that you like looking at the site, because my job is to push back a little bit when people want to add things that make it too complicated or make it distracting and may not be something that somebody who is 48 would understand the same way as somebody who's 25 who's used to using apps. So it's about keeping that as an even playing field. And in terms of what Fairygodboss has in terms of content, which I hope and would encourage you all to check out, just as an aside, my voice is wavering because I'm not a speaker. And I was very, very excited to be invited to this. But it's something that, that I try to tell people. If you don't take a chance and do something that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, you'll never do it. So this is only my second time really talking in front of things, so please. That's really sweet of all of you, thank you. What I'm hoping that you'll all get out of me being here is that you will go to Fairygodboss and you will check it out, because there are some really strong aspects of the website that make me very proud to work there. It is a community of women who are raising their hand to ask and answer questions. And they're tough questions. There are questions about people who've lost their jobs or who have figured out after 10 years that they're being underpaid. All of these things that you really can't ask on LinkedIn or Facebook because your name is attached to them. So you can ask these things, and we have, I think, 200 people who identify, we've identified as Fairygodboss VIPs, and a lot of them are career coaches, and they're answering this. So you're getting really good quality advice in a very safe platform. And on top of that, if you are looking for a new job, we're partnered with over 150 companies that have identified themselves and really put money behind the fact that they are hiring for diversity and inclusion. They really want women. They really want women who are career-minded and have experience. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. You're an amazing speaker. I mean, I've learned so much from. Really, I did. And also, again, thank you so much for this amazing custom built website. I've never seen anything like that before, so thank you again. And I think next, maybe Francesco, you briefly mentioned your project in Afghanistan. So I really want to dive deep and understand what led you to start the project in Afghanistan, and you really helped to transform the lives of people, especially women in Afghanistan. So do you want to share a little bit more about this project?
Yeah, all right. So it was a gut feeling I had because I had to go, I went to North Carolina to, there is a Marine, it's called Camp Lejeune, is a Marine base, and I interviewed 18 Marines, and this was 2010, beginning of 11, and I had this impression I wasn't going to make much of a difference because the VA system is a little complex, and especially as a foreigner, it's hard to navigate. At the same time, as I mentioned, NATO had provided me this content, so I said, well, what if we contact this woman on the other side of the world? And she, from the video, she looked like fairly reliable. Then I say to myself, worst it goes, I'm losing some money building some classrooms. And I made some rules. You have to film the classrooms before, the school before, during, and after the renovation. And you know, and she did all that. She did a fantastic job. So we built all those classrooms, and we saw the girls who were very prolific in terms of content, all right? So there was an advantage because of their society is so conservative, girls are not allowed to walk on the street by themselves. They're not going to play soccer. So I actually took full advantage of that because they were so stuck at home and in their classrooms that they were producing more content. So I gave them the guidelines of how to produce the content. And from a negative became a positive. In 2013, I started paying them in Bitcoin. So those are another dirty word, blockchain, Bitcoin, artificial intelligence. So everybody here in this room, if you want to leapfrog forward, so let's say you are much younger, you're 25 now, and you're thinking how you're going to be 50, you got to think about those things so that you know you embrace those technologies. So I started paying the girls in Bitcoin, and I ended up on a book in 2015 called The Age of Cryptocurrency. First page you open, boom, that's my name. Why? Because I am the only one who used Bitcoin, and not for the purpose of making money, but to pay people on the other side of the world. But still, I have not been in Afghanistan. So all this was done through technology. And then then you measure your defeats. That's another attitude about technology. You should not use technology to measure how successful you are. You should use technology to measure how unsuccessful you are about certain things and how you can improve yourself. So the attitude is always curiosity, is always getting better and better and better, and push your limits. So how many of you here have a artificial intelligence entity or chatbot that you create? Nobody, right? Oh, you have one. All right. So, all right. So that's your goal. Is that tomorrow you want to surprise people, and you want to be just one step ahead. You know how much it costs to build a chatbot with IBM? Zero. So it's a little complex. So you come to me for zero. I give you the technology to build it a little faster. But the bottom line is you gotta spend some time. And then I assume some of you here have children, or you have relatives, and you just kind of force them into this. You say, let's sit down. I want to build something different for myself. For some people, the first step is LinkedIn, all right? Or I wouldn't waste too much time on Facebook, to be frank. But then you build your personality, your digital persona. There's one last thing I want to say. On this platform called Bitlanders that I started in 2014, I have 1 million registered users. 70% are male, because male have more access to financial means to have internet, okay? The 30% women generate 65% of the buzz on this platform. I actually have a patent on this little buzz score thing. And that means that women outperform men 2.8 times, okay? Now, the reason why they outperform men so much in content is because this platform has no pictures, it's avatars, and there is nicknames to protect people's identity, so they can talk about what they want. Because the biggest liability, in my humble opinion, and I want to sound sexist, is women's image. So as long as, if you can detach the personal image of a person, women gain much more power than if you actually leave it there. It's actually counterintuitive. So you go on Instagram, you see all those beautiful girls getting all those likes, all right? And then there's some guys with a six-pack trying to do the same, but they are not as successful. So men is more into the category, I'm successful, I'm driving a Ferrari, look at how many likes I get. But if you detach that, if you take it away, really what comes up is your content. So what you should be measured by is not the way you look, is the way that you write your content, the way that you speak on the video, the way that you build this digital entity. One last thing, and then I stop talking. We're all destined to die one day, and this can happen in a blink. So what's left after we go? It's our digital presence. So, for example, I do have a personal chatbot. If I go in the next 5 seconds, then you guys can talk to francescorulli.com. It's a chatbot. They use actually IBM Watson as for two major things. One is NLU, natural language understanding, so you can ask me a question. And if I don't have a good answer to that question, I'll do machine learning on that, and allows me to add an entity later on. The other aspect is to measure sentiment. And on my LinkedIn page, there is 100% positive sentiment, in which is totally bullshit. The reality is that on what Watson is telling me, when people in the intimacy of the chatbot conversation talk to me, there is 9% of anger, probably 8 or 9% of 12% of sadness, 13% of fear. There is about 40% of happiness, and there is a 10-15% of undetermined. So that's the reality about life. So sometimes when you create your digital self, you also get to know more about the people that are talking to you. Because not necessarily you're going to tell the truth when you're on social media, like she was describing, who are going to say something negative on social media. Make sense? So that's all. So get your chatbot, and I'll make sure you get one if you want.
It's great advertising for IBM Watson.
Thank you so much. And we'll get assignment from Francesco. We have to build our own chatbot now. So now let's move on to Tommy. And I think you have a very unique work experience where now you're actually talking to our industry leaders and convince them maybe the 4-year college degree is not really relevant as the actual skill set. So I would assume that's a very interesting experience. Would you mind share some of your journey with us?
Sure. So first things I think that come to mind when we talk about the shift of these types of pathways is, are they successful in any way? So we started the apprenticeship program in 2017 with 6 apprentices. Last year we hired 180 and this year 450. And 96% of them have moved on to full-time jobs at IBM. It's also a much more diverse pipeline for talent than our other pipelines for talent. We're operating off around 55-60% total diversity in the program. And Tech Reentry, our returnship program, we've now hiring about 100 people a year in 4 different countries. We launched in India and Brazil this year as well. And so what this is teaching me, to be crass, is that old dogs can learn new tricks, and that these models of employment can be successful. So the question is, how do we remove the stigmas that are associated, I think, with jobs like an apprenticeship as a pathway? Why aren't people considering apprenticeship when they're considering either returning to work, starting their career, reskilling? It is an essential pathway for the world that we're moving into, where skills are going to be continually changing on a shorter and shorter basis. Apprenticeship as a model creates an opportunity for work-based learning and experiential learning, and the data shows that experiential learning, work-based learning is the most effective way to reskill. So goal is to, 1, create a contagion for these types of programs in the industry from the supply side of employment, but also adjust the mindsets of people looking for work that an apprenticeship is a good opportunity. You're making money while you're learning, so there's that taken out of the equation, and there's generally a lot of support around the reskilling while it's happening. In terms of interaction with higher education or government in general, I would say that universities are a bit slower to adapt to these changes that we're discussing. Community colleges are much more nimble, and they have community responsibilities, so they're much more in touch with the local people in the community, but also the needs of employers in the local economy. So they're very willing to partner with industry to make sure that we're developing skills in the different areas. I think overall, government can do a more effective job of support around people going through retraining programs. So if we're talking about Pell Grants and things like this, this is only open to degree-based programs. We know that there's going to be 70 million people who are going to need to reskill in the next 5 years. The idea that they're going to go to university programs is ludicrous. So how can we better allow them to retrain without incurring debt while they're doing that? That's not going to be good for the economy. So that's where we spend our time kind of focusing and trying to get people to change. I think one of the major things on the organizational side, when you're thinking about how do you make these types of programs successful, or how do you enable reskilling to occur in your organization, comes through 4 things that really help you build a learning culture. The first is transparency. So are you being transparent around what you think people need to know? Telling them if you think that their skills are not in the right area, making that clear to individuals. 2 is permission, giving permission to people to reskill, take the time to do it. 3 is psychological safety. Are you creating an environment in which people can say, I don't know, and not be punished? And the last is leadership. Are your leaders, demonstrating what they are doing to reskill, and modeling the behaviors of reskilling and talking about being transparent around things that they're focused on learning. So you can think about that as an employee. Is your organization providing you these opportunities, creating this environment? Because right now you may think you don't need to reskill, but I can tell you, you will need to reskill. And so we need to think about, are we in the right organizations, or do we have the right opportunities to do that, depending on the company. The last thing that I'll say is, prior to taking this job at New Collar, I spent the last 5 years with Watson and building out our AI business at IBM. And so launched that Watson group in 2014. And so what we're seeing as we look at the way AI and other technologies are going to affect society and the way that the world works, we know that tasks are reorganizing between human and machine. So how do we provide ourselves and as companies provide people the opportunity to learn and gain experiences that will continue to be valuable as AI takes a larger role in tasks that we work with? There are three things. One, the ability to collaborate and work well with others. Those are things that machines aren't going to be effectively able to do for a while. Two is around emotional intelligence. I think we can all understand that related to machines. And three is the ability to play outside your zone or be able to handle the unexpected. So giving yourselves the opportunities to strengthen those muscles and those experiences are going to be key. And I think one of the things as you listen to those things, those are the things that people who have experience in the workplace or have life experiences already have, right? Or they've been able to exercise those muscles over the course of their life. So that's an advantage as we move into the next phase of work and what the way the world will work that I think older workers will already have as their advantage. So.
Thank you so much for your comment as well as your suggestions of the three areas we need to work on so we don't lose our jobs to artificial intelligence.
Collaboration, emotional intelligence, and the ability to play outside your zone or adapt to the unexpected. AI sucks at those things.
It's very good to know, comes straight from Watson. So that's a really good segue to our next segment, which is actually asking three of our panelists, what are you doing personally to reskill and adapt to this constantly changing technological world? So Bernadette.
So I am constantly trying to keep up with everything that I need to know just to stay on top of even the cloud. Like there are so many things that if I don't follow the right newsletters and get the right stuff in my inbox and learn about, I feel an enormous pressure, and I think all of you do too as well. It can be overwhelming to try to keep up with what you need to know just to continue doing the job that you do every day. So I thought that when I came here, I would give you guys some examples of the actual programs and things that I use that you might be expected to need to know if you want to work for something like a startup. And I spoke to, so I mentioned earlier, I'm 48, I have 3 older sisters. I spoke to 2 of them who are both very professional, and I asked them for what they would also share. So some of the things that they brought up is that everyone here should know what the cloud is, how it works. Microsoft is great, but you also need to know how to use the Google documents, Google spreadsheets, anything that you can find that is a web-based program. For example, in my old business, I used to work a lot with Photoshop. There are a lot of online photo editing programs that you don't need to pay $600 a year for, and you can edit photos on your web browser. The other tools that you would want to know, especially if you're transitioning, are I feel like project management tools like Trello and Jira, Confluence. Those are really valuable tools for you to know about. And then any kind of communications tools, chatbots, I'm very interested in. But also even something as simple as Slack or Zoom. These are communication tools that are being used in startups and in big companies now these days. And then anytime I don't know anything, and this is really true for everyone I've talked to, 20-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 80-year-olds, we don't know what we don't know, and the hardest part is coming up with the language to ask for what does this all mean. Google and YouTube are your best friends. You can literally type in a question for anything and somebody has made an answer to why won't my iPhone stop beeping? Really, you can ask it anything. But YouTube, if you go home today with one word in your head of what you need to do, you need to go on YouTube and ask it the things that you've been trying to figure out all week. Why won't my dishwasher work? It will tell you. So don't be afraid of digging in and don't feel like you're supposed to have all the answers, because I also interviewed a couple people that I work with who are in their 20s, and I asked them the same things, like what would you want people to know? They don't know the answers either. We just have different ways of asking for the information. I was raised where if you don't have the answer, you have to figure it out. If the book is not available in the library because somebody got to it before you, you find another way. That's, I feel, the difference between how I was raised and how the next generation is being raised. They have constant access to information. So there are skills and things that we know how to do, and that's adaptability that I think you should leverage. And then in terms of, there's been a lot of talk today about mentorships. a great manager knows how to mentor up and mentor down. Mentoring never should be about age, and I really love the chats that were talked about this morning. It's like, find somebody who knows something that you don't know and just talk to them, and don't make it transactional. Just make it a conversation, and never say, will you be my mentor? That is the #1 way to get somebody to say no. Just have the conversations and move on from there. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm always trying to learn. YouTube, oh, and Skillshare. There's a site called Skillshare. It's very creative, so it works for me, but there are lots of learning. Udemy is a great learning platform. LinkedIn, bought lynda.com is on there, so video learning, fast, easy, and you can bookmark it.
Thank you. And also, I know one thing is a lot of times the hindrance is the cost. Some of these softwares may be costly, but really just YouTube it or Google it. There's always like free versions online, so it's one way to mitigate the cost.
So talking about cost, my humble opinion is that free is the most expensive. So what happens when you use those third-party tools, of which I do too, they gather all your data, and they know more about you than you know about yourself. So if you will take the time to go to francescorulli.com, you will have to choose a pattern, and I will follow that pattern, and I'll know exactly what's in your mind, okay? If you go to my LinkedIn or Wikipedia page or whatever is about to bypass my life, I will not know anything. You know, what's his name, Winner, the guy who owns LinkedIn, he'll know more about our interaction that we will know about each other. So you also have to be very disciplined about who you want to be digitally. My managing director, his name is Raffaele, he's in Dubai, he's a very big pain in the butt. But he told me, Francesco, you have to stop going to those lunch meetings because people like you, because of your age, your experience, they want to hang out with you. No, you have to do things digitally. Once in a while, you get to go out. But go with a friend, don't go out with everybody. And it's true. So I am like a little nerd. I put all my information on Monday, and he reviews everything, and everybody in the company can see, even when I make a mistake in my grammar and everything. But then when I funnel people into my chatbot, I see everything is in their mind. So let's say I met with Mark, and I think Mark, we were speaking about business. Actually, I tell you, there was this guy, Franz, from Deloitte the other day, who speak. And then he says to me, Francesco, I don't think we're going to do business together. I say, why? Well, you know, you are in a space a little different from, but I think we can roll. I'm like, what do you mean roll? Yeah, we can go and do judo together, because I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. So really, he took a completely different pattern in our relationship. And I'm going to see him hopefully next Wednesday, and he's coming to the New York Athletic Club to do some judo with me. So sometimes you have to give a space to people. If you look at LinkedIn, start from the bottom. Look at first of all, at the publications, the references. Look at where, not so much just where they went to school, but if they're part of any volunteering, if they're part of any board. And then you go up and you look at their experience from the beginning. People have a tendency to really be attached to what happened in their 20s and 30s. And then you go up to the job they have now. So that process, it will allow you to learn more about them, but also if you do the same due diligence to yourself and you build that little bloody chatbot I was talking about before, then you're going to do your due diligence. Because my chatbot started with a business, then personal. Then I saw people were interested in personal, so I added philanthropy. Then they were interested in more in sports, and I added more about sports. Then I started asking them, what's your favorite sport? So I just found out that the majority of the people that visit my chatbot, that is about 300 people a month, that saves me 36 hours a month of my personal time, they like Ultimate Frisbee. I would never thought that, you know. So you start learning from those guys, and you do basically machine learning over those, you know, the people that are interacting with you. So curiosity is the best asset, but you have to back it up with real technology, proprietary technology. Beware. It's good to use YouTube and Google, but those guys, they will take all your informations and will give you nothing bad but the service. If you want to really use those informations, you have to have control of that data. You know, and then it goes back to AI and everything else, all right? That's my humble opinion.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So as we explore these online options, our own personal data protection is also very important.
Okay, so in terms of learning, I think I always like to mention this quote, in times of great change, Learners inherit the earth while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists. So the importance of learning and dedicating time to learning every week is a practice or habit that I've tried to develop. So every Friday before noon, my day is blocked and I just spend a few hours dedicated to either reading articles, listening to podcasts, or picking up a single thing that I wanted to dedicate to myself that week. So I think trying to build a practice or space for yourself to learn something new and focus just on a single thing, don't try and learn a lot of things, that is a very good practice if you can try and develop, or at least it works for me. And then I would say on the ways of working or things that you mentioned, the most common thing that we look at when people are returning to work or trying to get into work are thinking about ways of working today. And so that goes to design thinking and agile methodologies. So those are the first things that we typically have to teach people as they're re-entering the workforce or starting jobs at IBM. What is design thinking? What does it look like? Agile ways of working, project management, methodologies, things about thinking about problem solving. Those are the two areas that we focus on and try to get people to pick up sooner rather than later.
Thank you. So now I think we're going to open up the floor to questions. Anyone have any questions for our panelists?
Bernadette, I have a question. You threw out a bunch of names that I never heard of before. I just thank you very much for sharing everything with us. I just wanted to write it all down.
Okay.
Because I want to check it out after after you guys leave. You threw out after Udemy. I've seen that around, but I didn't get all the others.
What was it?
Udemy is an online learning platform with videos. Another one that I like a lot is called Skillshare. That's for creative platforms. There's even one called Creative Bug, which is really...
Can you use a microphone?
Yep.
Sorry about that. Skillshare is a video platform for creatives. Udemy is a really great asset for a broader range of courses. Creative Bug. Udemy is U-D-E-M-Y. Oh gosh, there's another one that I can't think of. But Google it, really. There's online, just Google, lynda.com is, if you have a premium membership on LinkedIn, you have access to the Lynda library. They also have 30-day free trials. And then in terms of learning the best programs for anything that is your specialty, I literally go on and say, what are the 5 programs I need to know for product design? What are the best UX, UI platforms to use for that X, Y, or Z? Because it changes every 90 days, literally. And if I don't keep up on that list, I don't stay employable. So to your point, keep learning and never, never stop.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, there's another question.
This is for Francesco. Hi, I'm Tony Raccio. I looked at, it's Querlo?
Yeah, Querlo is the company.
Yeah.
Francescorulli.com is my personal chat box.
Okay. So I'm a small new consultancy. I had a business for 19 years in the talent acquisition space. I'm wondering, I'm a relationship guy. I'm face-to-face, that's how I've always been. How can the chatbot help me or transition the relationship kind of factor that I provide, utilizing the Querlo lead generation or any of those chatbot options?
So philosophically is the same of using LinkedIn. If I want to learn more about you, I go on LinkedIn and I consult that, and then I can call you, I can message you for a private message to discuss something in person. Chatbots help to qualify the conversation. And qualification sometimes is also to allow the user on the other side to discover more than they expect, and to let them be free to browse around, it's the same difference of like if you Google my name, you'll see different publications. Wikipedia comes on top, then you have probably LinkedIn, then you have my chatbot. So the difference with the my chatbot is that I will be able to see everything you have done, and there is a more compelling answers in real time. But still there is that call for action to contact each other directly in person and to discuss what really is the most important aspect of the conversation. So the human aspect is always very important. I have over 4,000 emails in my inbox, and there is no physical way I can ever go through them again altogether. So what happens, I have to qualify those conversations. I do want to speak with everybody in person, but I can't. So I really have to make choices, and I have to qualify them based on the data that my middleware, in this case, my chatbot, will provide me. If I'm promoting a new product now with Forbes, I'm going to go Sales Navigator. I will choose the level of seniority, the market, if it's in marketing or if it's a CIO, whatever it is, and then I'm going to funnel down to those guys. So if I don't want to do that with LinkedIn, I'll do it with my own technology. And usually companies, they're kind of stuck into having everything on a traditional knowledge base. So it's manuals, PDF, decks, whatever you have in your mind. Once you take the leap of faith of digitalizing your personal life, digitalizing all those manuals, those best practice, the knowledge that you have around you, then this is a fluid conversation. It will pinpoint to where you're not doing a good job, and that's where you can improve. You know, you're still taking the people that really matter to you out for lunch. You're still spending that 1 hour on the phone, but now you worry less about the repetitive questions because you got the chatbot answering all those questions over and over and over. Websites do that kind of, but they don't give a chance to talk two ways. You know, also this panel format is not really my favorite because the most interesting thing it would be if I know more about the people on the other side instead of me talking to nothing, right? So the idea is that everybody should have engaged with my chatbot first, ask me the most crazy questions, and maybe even tell me more about their life stories so I can pull them into this conversation and make this a more of an organic conversation instead of a monologue. So that what chatbot does are middleware between people, you know, and that's all, you know.
Thank you so much for your answer.
It strikes me that it should be called something else than a chatbot.
Yeah, it's called conversation artificial intelligence.
We call it Watson Assistant.
Yes. Yeah.
Watson Assistant. Yeah, conversational computing.
Yeah.
And chatbots is the simple term that helps people understand what it actually
Yes.
is.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it seems like we also have a few more questions, but I think our panelists are going to be hanging around for a little bit longer. So maybe you can have a more private conversation with them after this session. Unfortunately, we are at the end of this panel. Hope